Hello, guys. Today we're going to talk about the history of the New York Stock Exchange market. Actually, the New York Stock Exchange market is the largest stock market in the world. It offers companies and entrepreneurs to raise capital and navigate the world's future. Its purpose has expanded to make connections, facilitate conversations, advance the interest of listed companies and of a broad range of investors. Now, Marta will talk about the brief history of the stock market.
Yes. Without getting too deep into boring information and dates, let's look at a brief history of the New York Stock Exchange. It was founded in 1817, although a fun fact is that there are actually evidences from 1792 when a collective of stockholders and merchants signed a contract together under a buttonwood tree on the very location we will discuss soon, Wall Street. While changing a lot of locations, the New York Stock Exchange finally settled on its current location in 1865. That is, on 11 Wall Street, 18 Broad Street. The stock exchange market began growing in terms of volume and members. The 1920s, aka the Roaring Twenties, were a time of great economic development, and both the US and European economies were flourishing at that time. But we would like to switch the focus on some more interesting and drastic events that will always remain in the history of the New York Stock Exchange. These are several crashes that impacted the global economy and market in unforeseen ways. Mitko?
Hi guys, I'm going to talk about one of the most devastating crashes in American market history, the stock market. So basically, it's known as the Black Tuesday or the Great Crash. It happened on October 1929, and it shocked the world by storm because at one day, 16 million to be correct, shares were sold at one day, and this made the market crash instantly, and it left its footprint on the global economic events forever. So basically, this event started a great chain of devastating economic events like the Great Depression or even more economic crises. So for the foundation of the event, its background. So it happened over a few days, beginning with October 24th, which is also known as the Black Thursday. And on the Black Thursday, the market lost 11% of its value, which is huge for that time's terms. Many people tried containing the crash, but with no success. Even the Rothschild family tried containing it as investing in funds and shares, but with no success. There was also before the crash, there were many crashes, which should have signaled to people that the market is eventually going to experience a big crash, but no people were actually taking notice of that. And there was this huge decline of construction, production, and expediency in the American market. So it basically signaled that there is a storm coming, to say it in proper terms. So in early October 1929, basically almost 13 million, on October 24 to be correct, almost 13 million shares were traded, which spiraled down the crash and basically started this huge downturn in the economy. So I'm now going to talk about the aftermath of this devastating event and this in the human history. So basically what happened after that is the Great Depression. Many of you know what the Great Depression is. So basically, to put it in simple terms, by 1933, unemployment had reached nearly 15 million people who lost their jobs. Black people felt the crisis the most because they were the first ones to get fired and the last ones to get hired. So it was very harsh, but women actually found solitude in this change because there were a lot of job opportunities for nurses or health caretakers. or other jobs which women actually benefit a lot from. And to give you an example, what happened in the crash, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which is a stock, a blue chip stock. A blue chip stock is a benchmark for most secure and most valuable stocks, which almost never, when experiencing a crash, would never go down in price. So this stock, the Dow Jones Industrial Stock, crashed during this Black Tuesday. And it lost its value of being an all-time low at $41.22, which is 89% below its all-time peak, which is extremely shocking. And this event was basically the illustrated and shows like the Peaky Blinders, and it spiraled down many crises down the road. But you'll now see more of these crises as we go along.
So now I will tell you about the Black Monday. It occurred on October 19, 1987, when markets around the world collapsed. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost a whopping 22%, and the S&P 500 sheet 20.4% on that day alone, thus creating the largest single-day drop in U.S. stocks on record up till that point, easily surpassing the previous record of 12.8% set during the Wall Street crash of 1929. By the end of the month, most major stock markets had lost more than 20%. Unlike the famous 1929 crash, moreover, there were few warning signs that such a spectacular collapse was in the offing in October 1987. Indeed, perhaps most astonishing about the event of Black Monday was just how unexpected they were. Unlike the famous 1929 crash, moreover, there were a few warning signs that such a spectacular collapse was in the offing in October 1987. Indeed, perhaps most astonishing about the event of Black Monday was just how unexpected they were. When the crash occurred, stock markets had been on a bull run for 5 straight years. The economy was experiencing light growth, and bullish statement previewed markets all around the world, or so it seemed. A reason behind the Black Monday is the week before that had brought major stock indexes losses of about 10%. So the selling pressure was there waiting in the wings at the close of trading on Friday. Second, from the open on Monday, programming stock sales order hit the market in waves after waves, targeting a domino effect, sending exchanges worldwide lower, which further increased the selling pressure. The same programs that were sending sales orders were also responsible for pulling any bids out of the market, leaving a huge gap between sell orders and buy orders. Now we will continue with...
Following the 9/11 terrorist attacks, the New York Stock Exchange was not open for trade. That was one of the few instances this has happened throughout the history of the market. Everybody knows about the attack on the World Trade Center and what went on, but what were the economic effects and the impact on the stock market? In particular, a wave of panic sales caused a crash in prices of stocks. An accumulated of 1.4 trillion US dollars were lost in market value. Logically, the main victim companies were airlines. Huge losses were accounted for due to the insurance payouts, grounded flights, and so on. Another impact of the horrible event was the increase of investments towards safety and protection. In terms of stocks, following the event, a sharp rise in the share prices of defense and weapon companies happened. Despite what happened on that day and the increased cautiousness, there is still uncertainty about the market stability. God forbid, anything unforeseen can happen, causing mass hysteria and chaos in the stock market. Economies are closely related and tied to the events happening around the world. As we will see in the next events, however, not always the tragedy is what leads to market crashes and economic crises.
So now I'm going to talk about the massive global financial crisis the world faced from 2008 to 2009, also known as the Great Recession. So let's first talk about the background and what led the origins of the crisis. Let's look at the housing market, which for many centuries served as a symbol of American prosperity. Since the 1930s, when the American government started to support the mortgage sector, federal policy has actively promoted the American dream of home ownership. And the National Commission on the Causes of the Financial and Economic Crisis of the United States final report states that between 2001, 2001 and 2007, mortgage debt decreased almost as much as it has over the course of the rest of the country's history, and home prices doubled at the same time. So, was the American dream sold on too easy credit? The housing market bubble, which was the cornerstone of the crisis, started to emerge in 2007. Bank and lending organizations encouraged many people to get loans that they couldn't afford by offering cheap interest rates on mortgages. Many salespeople didn't request any documentation from customers regarding their employment, income, or assets. Banks started giving loans to individuals and families that lacked the resources to repay the mortgages that they had been given. Then it was inevitable that these high-risk loans would be aggregated and transformed through the chain. As mortgages were converted to securities, the investment risk increased. Lenders were allowed to do careless underwriting because the audit rules weren't strictly regulated, making it impossible to determine or guarantee the security's actual market value. Lending institutions started to have financial issues as the number of bad loans packages increased to an excessive level and a significant portion went into default. This caused the global financial crisis that lasted from 2008 to 2009 and persisted for years afterwards. The crisis had a significant effect on the housing market. Within a few months, evictions and foreclosures started. As a result, the stock market crashed and some large corporations failed, losing billions of dollars. Naturally, this led to a massive cuts and long periods of unemployment throughout the world. International trade slowed down significantly as a result of declining credit availability. Financial institutions began to fail. Many of them were taken over by bigger organizations, and the US government had to provide funds to save many of them. Meanwhile, the decreasing confidence in US government had to provide the decreasing confidence in US financial stability led to fewer and more cautious investment because the stock market reflects people's beliefs. So, an interesting fact is that the Great Depression's decline in stock markets took about 4 years. In comparison, during the 2008 crisis, it took only 18 months to crash. So, the response of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009 adopted an expansionary monetary policy, which encouraged bank consolidation and attempted to stimulate economic recovery. 5 years were needed for the stock market to recover. In March 2013, the industrial average reached the same level as in October 2007. But an important thing to mention is that the crash of 2008 was not followed by a Great Depression, in contrast to that of 1929. The recovery and its economic, political, and social aftermath were more important than the crisis itself, according to an article published in New York Times. So that was all for that crisis. Now Chrissy will continue.
So now I will continue with the crash in 2020. And between February 12th and March 23rd, the Dow lost a stunning 37% of its value. On March 16 alone, the Dow plumped to nearly 3,000 points, losing 12.9%, as investors worried about the prospects of economical destruction wrought by the COVID-19. The drop in stock prices was so large and so swift that it triggered multiple trading halts that day. In fact, the New York Stock Exchange suspended trading several times during those days. The worst hit stocks were those affected by the travel restriction, such as cruise lines, air carriers, and energy companies. United Airlines stock fell from $86 to $24 in March. So throughout the summer and fall, prices began to creep up again. And by August 18, the Standard & Poor's 500 was hitting record again. And the Dow crosses 30,000 for the first time ever on November 24th. Even with all the tumult, the Dow finished the year with 7.2%, and the S&P 500 did even better by gaining 16.3%. Meanwhile, Nasdaq Composite Index, which is dominated by hot technology stocks, soared by a whopping 43.6%. Here on the diagram, you can see the pre-crash high on February 12th and the following crash during the COVID-19 pandemic, and recovered to new heights in the end of 2020. And furthermore, here on the picture on the right, it's Yvette Arrington, and in the bottom, it's a quote from her that states that she didn't expect that everything will end up so great. So thank you for your attention, and you can follow the link in order to do a quick quiz in Kahoot.